Today, we'll discuss how to land a Big Four job as a college student and some of the horrid mistakes you all make during the recruitment process. Welcome back. My name is Stefan Trolovich, and today let's discuss Big Four campus recruiting. I've gotten a lot of inbound emails, calls, and random LinkedIn messages about Big Four recruiting advice in general, or just working directly with me. So I'd like to use this as an opportunity to discuss the most frequently asked questions and how to address them. I'll go over the recruiting process in general and its largest misconceptions, the do's, and more importantly, the don'ts, because I've seen some very cringeworthy stuff. Let's talk about the Big Four recruiting process. This whole thing starts very early in your college career. If you're thinking that you can simply submit a resume online, show up to an interview, and this is my time to shine, you're probably too late. The thing with the Big Four is they put on a ton of events, whether it's meet the employers or maybe some kind of go-kart racing event, as it was for me, all of the time and very early on. So I started going to my first events as a sophomore in college. It might be as a junior for you, but the point is get involved very early. And when you do, talk to everybody at all levels, whether they're a senior manager or partner or even an associate. Have a good conversation and make sure that you always send a follow-up email. So when you're done talking to them, either ask them for their card or just simply ask for their email. And after the fact, within the next, let's say, 2 to 3 days, write a nice note just reminding them about what you talked about. Hey, I enjoyed our conversation about cars and climbing and whatever else. Thank them for their time and simply say, looking forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers. It's that simple, but get in that habit because it puts you in front of them and in their mind throughout the whole time. Even if you don't plan to interview or be an intern or full-time employee for another 2 years or 3 years, it's always best to get started early. And in case you're wondering, how do I get access to these events? Well, that's on you. Every school is different, and a lot of times the Big Four either go directly through the business school to post all these events on a website, and a lot of times it's also through professional organizations such as Beta Alpha Psi, which has its own entry requirements, and I think they vary by school. So if all of these events, for example, are posted to Beta Alpha Psi, it's up to you to get membership early and as soon as possible and maintain good standing. But at the end of the day, it's hustle. You need to find out how your school does it, where the events are, and then apply this advice. Now let's move on into kind of the 3 steps of the recruiting process. I think it boils down to 1, is my resume satisfactory? 2, can you work with my clients? And 3, do I really want to work with you? Let's start with number 1. Is your resume satisfactory? Well, your grades and your prior experience do matter to some extent, especially early on. In the example I recently gave, if your school hosts all of their events through a professional organization such as Beta Alpha Psi, they might have a minimum entry requirement. I think for me, when I was in school, you had to have at least about a 3.1 to 3.3 GPA. So if you don't have that, you don't have access. So that's kind of your first hurdle. So make sure that whichever way your school is giving you access to these Big Four events, that you have a way to get there. And obviously, the higher the GPA, the better it is for you, but it's not really that important after you reach a certain point. Secondly, I shouldn't have to say this, but make sure you proofread and have other people look at your resume. As smart as you may be, if it doesn't look like you put in a lot of work into that one document, you're going to get hurt. And lastly, I know some of you might be working through college or maybe you don't have all of these sexy extracurriculars that other people do. If you worked as bartender or whatever else, a bus person somewhere, list it on your resume. It might not seem relevant right away, but a lot of people at the Big Four, they do like scrappy college students who really had to fight their way to get to where they are. So don't be embarrassed or think that it's not relevant. Put it all on there. Make sure you proofread it and maintain the highest GPA possible. It's that easy. Once you have this down, for the steps 2 and 3, your GPA now no longer matters. Don't be that guy who's going around, oh, guess what? I have a 3.8. I'm better than that person with a 3.6. No, you're not. At a certain point, I think after you reach a 3.3 or 3.5, just depending on the school, at that point, you pass the minimum bar and your grades don't matter. Now it's about all the different social skills and the different events that the Big Four are going to put you through. That brings us to number 2. Can you work with my clients? The Big Four don't have all of these different social events, like I said, whether it's go-kart racing or maybe even like some kind of night at a bar just because they love to have fun with college students. Yeah, it might be a good time, but they need to see you in action in social situations. Because there are a lot of students that are book smart, but they really don't know how to deal with people. And the Big Four want to see this before you even get to an interview. And the biggest piece of advice I can give there is one, let your guard down. Like I said, grades don't matter. And I've seen a ton of people who've prepped for their social events and they'll Google some random accounting topic like, oh, ASC 606, yeah, 5-step model. I'm going to bring that up. And they would literally be in a group setting and just spout some bullshit that they don't know what they're talking about, but trying to seem smart. And, oh, how about that new revenue recognition announcement? Oh, that must really impact your work. If someone said that to me, I'd give them a weird look and walk out right away because I've been working all day dealing with that kind of stuff. I don't want to talk to you about it during a social setting. So I would tend to stay away from topics like that. Let your guard down, have a good time, and wherever the conversation naturally goes, just go with it. Maybe you'll talk about your last vacation. Maybe you'll talk about what you did last weekend. It's fine. Just have a free-flowing conversation. Be yourself. And kind of in line with that, have fun. Like, I know it's easy for me to say, and you might be a nervous wreck at these events, but it'll really go a long way. I remember during my first event, I was pretty nervous, but I kept it together more or less, and I really like driving, and thankfully we were at a go-kart event, and I ended up racing with a partner. At the time, I actually didn't even know it was a partner. He was pretty young, and I ended up talking crap, and we got along, talked about our favorite Porsche models, and we had a fabulous time. Guess what? Event one, that person remembered my name. I made sure I got their card, and it went very well from there. But be careful. There's being confident and relaxed, but there's also being way too comfortable. On the other hand, I've seen some people just drop the F-bomb every other sentence because they think they're being cool and relaxed and kind of, just an everyday person. That doesn't go well either. So don't be too nervous. Don't be too relaxed. You got to find that middle ground and just like Goldilocks, be just right. And the last hurdle, do I really want to work with you? Now, this might sound a little controversial, but there's a reason when you go to different offices at different locations that a lot of the people who work there tend to be kind of the same in some respects. Whether they all like to golf or they're all really into hot pot or whatever else. And I don't think it's a conscious decision, but we as people naturally like people with the same interests. So during these events, I think it's really important to make sure you find that middle ground and try to find those common interests, whether you like to volunteer at the local food bank, maybe you're an avid mountain climber, whatever it might be. Because you're spending possibly 70, 80, 90 hours in the same room with some of these people, depending on your job. They want to have something to talk to you about. Yeah, maybe your grades are great. Maybe you're generally polite and good at conversing with people. But it's always good to have common interests because it makes their lives easier. It'll make your lives easier. Now, there's a two-way aspect to this. Yes, people will select who to give offers to, whether it's conscious or unconscious, with that lens on. But it's also advice for you on how to pick an employer if you're lucky enough to have multiple offers. Because it's hard to say, what's the culture of PwC? Well, there isn't one. Audit at PwC in San Francisco is going to be way different than deal advisory in LA for PwC, for example. It all very much varies. So depending on how you got along with people during these events, if you're between 2 or 3 offers and there's one group where you're just like, I really got along with those people, or they treated me particularly well and not just like some other random person who came to interview, I'd say trust your gut and pick that firm. It'll be better for them and for you, and your career will be at a very good start. And from there, guys, just one last piece of advice that I harp to everyone and I've seen it kill people. If you're nearing the end of your kind of degree, whether it's a bachelor's or a master's, make sure you take a job, any job. So maybe you struck out with the Big Four, maybe BDO and some of the smaller firms didn't give you an offer either. It's okay, you'll still have a chance as an experienced hire, but it's very important not to be stuck in what I call recruiting limbo. Because there's really 2 paths that companies recruit. They have campus recruiting, which we just talked about, but the second you get your degree and walk out of school, it's campus recruiting is no longer accessible to you in many colleges. But for experience hire recruiting, they want you to have 1 or 2 years experience at least. So now, anytime you call a recruiter, the campus recruiter says, well, you're not on campus, but the experience hire recruiter says, well, you don't have experience. I've had this happen to many people close to me, and it took them 1 or even 2 years to find any job out of college because they didn't have one set up during their school. So don't think some job is too beneath you. If you only have one option and you're about to graduate, just take it, do a good job, and then use that as a platform to get a Big Four job or whatever else might be for you after college. Don't get stuck without work. Take care.